Welcome to the Life Career Roadmap YouTube channel, episode number 15. And today I have my special guest, Julie Macey. And Julie, welcome to our channel.
Thank you, Cema. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I can't wait for our chat.
Yeah, me too. I have been missing you here in person.
Oh no, it's been a while.
That's right. So, Julie, normally I ask my guests to introduce themselves, but I do with two questions. The first one is where you come from and what is your professional background?
Okay. So I was born in France, in Normandy, about 3 hours west of Paris, in a beautiful medieval town called Bayeux. For those who know, those history nerds. And my professional background is, so I did a master in management when I was in France. In the end, to do a career, overseas. I knew I was made to one day, leave home, go and travel, go and explore the world. So on purpose, when I finished high school, I chose, some tertiary education that would allow me to travel and discover, the best way of doing management and running businesses around the world. So when I finished my master's in management in 2004, I had actually a couple of majors, one in HR and one in entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always had in my mind, that wish to go and live in Australia. I think from as far as I can remember, I've always told my parents, that's where I would eventually live and build my life. So I spent a good 3 to 4 months, in my last semester as part of my master to search for employment in Australia. And what I did is that I had this alumni, of all the previous people, who had done the same master's degree as me that were traveling and working, all around the world. So I pretty much targeted those who were living in Australia. And I remember there was about 25 of them. And I sent them, each an individual letter explaining who I was and what I was looking for in Australia. And back then, you have to remember that was kind of the very early days of emails.
Yes.
So I remember sending a few letters as well and a few faxes, where I was just introducing what it was and how keen I was to come and explore this land far away. And that's how I landed my first contract. A sponsorship that ended up, being for a company that I worked about, 5 or 6 years in total. And yes, it was through someone, who graduated from the same business school as me. We had heard, about this amazing women in Australia that had that international background that she was building her consulting firm and she needed people who could speak different languages, who could understand different cultures. And she needed someone for her French-speaking account department. The company had clients, that were from France and they wanted to start operations in Australia. Or they wanted to, merge with an Australian business. So they needed someone who could speak, French, someone who could understand how things, were working in France and obviously compare that, with the reality here in Australia. So the company sponsored me, they trained me. Look, what was supposed to be a short assignment, at the start, ended up being, quite a few years of my life. But yeah, so that's where I started really, my master's management, and then coming to Australia and working in consulting for the first 10 years of my professional career.
Well done. And your undergraduate degree was related to your master's or something different that you did?
It was, yeah. So in France, you do when you do a business school, you basically straight away from high school sign up for 5 years, and you end up, with a master's in management. So the first 3 years were very general. So I studied, anything from marketing to financial management, accounting, law,
HR that you had as well.
HR, as well, and
Something good I didn't know about. So thank you for letting us know, like the very peculiar ways of studying in France and how the system works.
it is very different to Australia and other countries. When you study business engineering in France, you study it through business schools or engineering schools, and they are straight away 5 years degrees. And they also include a very strong component of work experiences. So I think what made the difference when I came to Australia, because I graduated, I had my high school, certificate. I was 16. So when I graduated from my master's in management, I was just 21. But I had done a lot of work experiences already by then, So in comparison to a 21-year-old Australian person, I had already about 18 months worth under my belt, of professional work experiences. I had worked in London for a few months. I had worked in Paris for a few months as well, in my field of expertise. So I came as a young graduate with already quite a good background, and a good understanding as well about the business world. So I think that's what made the difference, and that's why I got the job, when I landed in Sydney.
Good. So how wonderful is that? So thank you for sharing this. So I would like to go back the time when you're a little girl there in Normandy and asking her, when was the first time that you had this vision or thought of, I want to travel the world and I want to have my career doing something, but not here in France, somewhere else? And how it came to your life, this kind of idea?
It feels like I was born, with that deep knowledge, that I belonged to something much bigger than my own town, or my own region. Like I've always been drawn to other horizons, So to give you an example, at school, every time we could choose a topic for a presentation, I would always choose Australia, or Africa, or those big landscapes, where there's different animals, different cultures, different landscapes. And as I grew up, more and more of my projects were, an opportunity for me to learn more about Australia. And I remember going to the library researching about Australia. I remember, my parents having this huge encyclopedia at home where I would read everything that to do, with Australia. I remember the time where the school had one computer, and I would just prepare my PowerPoint presentation on Australia, on that computer, to present it, to the rest of the class. And I think as a child, I remember this Disney cartoon called Bernard and Bianca that happens in Australia. And I think that's the moment where I was mesmerized by how beautiful the country was here, And I knew I was meant to go there, and I knew that I had to do everything I could to make it happen. So that was pretty clear to me that if I wanted to go towards my dream and achieve it, there was a specific set of steps that I needed to follow. And I really took it as a project plan, and I started to get extremely, like I remember having my uni bedroom and I turned it into a headquarter of my job search to Australia, So I was surrounded with post-its and ideas. And I remember having an Excel spreadsheet where I was tracking all the leads that I was getting, in order to find a job here in Australia. Because remember, that's prior to the internet time. Okay. Because I would reach out to people who could not help me directly, but gave me another name, another person to contact, and that's how it worked in the end. But the good old-fashioned way, of networking before LinkedIn, before all of that. And I remember that spreadsheet at the end was massive. That was more than 300 lines, of leads that I had tried to follow, and obviously, as I said, before, the strongest, the most important lead I had was my alumni, of previous graduates. This was my golden tool. And I remember back then there was a hard copy, that came out every year. And I grabbed the latest copy, of the alumni book, and I searched and I contacted every one of them that was obviously in Australia, but in the Southeast Asia region, And I told them about my dream. I told them about, who I was, what I studied, the work experiences, that I had under my belt. So I had And the key one was a 6 months work experience that I did in Paris for a headhunting company that gave me quite a good understanding of, HR processes and also cross-cultural management, because we were at the time recruiting for international roles, and I just put up like a pack together, where I was just selling my competences and selling and explaining what was my plan and my end goal, And I remember that I telling them, I will succeed, I will be there. So you better choose me, because
you had the vision, you know what you wanted, right?
and I also want to add that I remember at the time how difficult it was and how I had highs and lows, because all my friends, we were about a promotion of 350 graduates, and a lot of them didn't share my dream, going international or overseas. So they were looking for a job in France. And it was much easier for them, because all the support was there to help them connect with local employers, And everyone, even months before graduating, they already had, their contract signed, nice graduate offer on paper, And I remember having lows where I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This dream is crazy, and maybe I should just settle for something easier and just accept, the job offers that I've got in Paris, because the business school that I did was well thought after, and employers were coming to get us, and offer us job. And I was then in a different bubble to the rest of my peers, because it was a different approach. And I didn't have at the time a lot of people to support me and to encourage me amongst, my uni peers. Thankfully, my family was very supportive. And back then, that's from where I got the inspiration, from my mum and dad, who were extremely happy, about the eagerness, that I had to get that dream happening. And I remember their support, was fantastic, because when I had those lows, they were actually here to remind me, that they knew deep inside them that it was going to work. They had never doubt, about my ability to make my dream come true. But I had to hear it sometimes, And so having the support of your family was super, super important and made all the difference. And I remember when I had finally the great news coming, that I landed a job, and I was, on my way to Sydney. It was the time when you had to dial in, to get on the internet, and you had to wait like 10 minutes. You had before you could get your connection working. I remember I was on my own that day at home. And I only had the dog with me, and she was next to me.
Celebrate with you.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be good. I'm sure, And then the suspense went forever. And then when I finally managed to access my inbox, my Gmail, and open the email, and then you click on open, and it takes another 30 seconds for the email to arrive,
Dying to curiosity.
And then I got the email. I was like, yeah. Dear Julie, you have been selected. We would like you to arrive on that date. Please give us a call, and so we can get organized. And yeah, and I remember just exploding of joy, And obviously I was living in the countryside with no neighbors. No one heard me, but I screamed.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It was tough to find, that first job in Australia, no doubt that, but all the energy and the time that I spent, was worth it, every minute of doubt and hard work was worth it. Yeah. Because I've never looked back since. Yeah.
Clearly, you put in a strategy to make the process work for you. And as a newcomer in a new land, you came with the good dream of having a job in this country, not even necessarily going to find another job, but you knew that you were in a good place. You come with something that supports you. So having this strategy that you put together and took so much energy to do it. And also the emotion that you said you had, the lows and ups and downs, not knowing and doubting yourself if it would be possible or not. And also the investment of money, right? To be able to chase your dream, to get your dream the way you believed that would be for you.
Correct. And again, I'm thankful for my family's support because, back then I was young. But obviously dependent on my family as well. I was about to leave the nest. And yeah, that was I don't think I would have been able to do it without the support of my family, to make this initial move. Obviously when I landed in Australia, then I did everything I could, to have a few other jobs here and then to earn more money, and be able to support myself and all the cool trips, and activities that you can do, once you land on under. But yeah, it was my tribe. My tribe was there for me, and believed me, and also gave me the material opportunity, to pay for my first flight to Australia.
So then that's normally, it was a safety.
They put me on the plane.
Yes, but what I say normally to people, my mentees and people that come to my workshops is treat your life as a business and then you succeed. Because what you did was specifically a business process to succeed. And then is investing, not just money, but investing the energy to develop your idea, how to get your networks, how to find a job, who do I need to connect? So all the investment of the energy to think about the process, then the investment of time, because you didn't do this way. It took you time. Even nowadays with LinkedIn and all the emails and all the facilities that we have, can take time.
It does.
And the money. So a business to succeed needs to invest money to develop a product, a service. It takes time to develop, to get the right people engaged as an employees to work together. And a business, when you go to a business, is because they believe what they can bring as a result is a solution for someone. And they don't go there saying, oh, I sell this, but I'm sure that doesn't work. People won't want this. No, they go there because they know people people need that kind of service or product. So it's an investment of good intentions, good emotions to be able to be there. So you did basically the process of a business with your career to get where you want to be.
Look, you summarized it really, really well. And I think if I can add one last layer to that, is how important it was to visualize ahead of the actual action. I remember I was in France, closing my eyes, and already I could imagine my life in Australia. I could picture myself. I could feel Australia. I could smell it. I could go and hug people and the trees, and I could transport myself, to the Great Barrier Reef or to, Uluru, all these landscapes that I had seen, on postcards or in the books. Australia was already inside my heart. It was already beating inside here before I came. And that's because I spent a lot of time reflecting on my project, dreaming about it. And it was alive inside, before it became alive in front of my eyes. Yeah.
It's something good that you remind, because as a business, you think about how you can go with the business, right? The vision. But for people that have been through my workshops, and when I do the visualization exercise, so now you can relate to what Julie is saying, because Julie, this is right. You need to see your life the way you want to see it.
Yeah.
Taking the points and the dots to put things together as a puzzle. So nothing come as on a silver plate for you. You need to get the interest.
And so the first 10 years of my professional career in Australia was in consulting, but mostly in HR. So I have spent a lot of time interviewing people, and a lot of time having conversation with people who approach me to come to Australia. And I could tell it straight away from the very beginning of the conversation who was hungry for it and would succeed, and Wu was trying, but without any strategy or appetite,
Right.
and was just expecting the opportunity to fall from the sky, you know?
They're trying,
And
right? They're trying. I try. Don't do it. Try. Yeah.
Australia, I found it's a really tough country. And Australia doesn't give itself, to everyone. I think you have to deserve Australia. You really, especially when you come from obviously a similar, pathway as mine, which is I chose Australia. I had another beautiful life pathway somewhere else. Okay. I chose it for, I'm not saying for political reasons, or because I didn't have the choice or any other options, and I really appreciate how fortunate I was, to be able to choose Australia in this context. So when I was talking to other people like me, who had everything at home that they needed, but then wanted something else, then you need to be hungry for it. You need to be passionate about it, because although Australia is not going to open, its doors to you. And a lot of people made that mistake as well, especially with the rise of the working holiday visas, thinking, so easy, I can land in Australia. Of course, I'm going to find a job, because I've got an education and, where I come from, I had that many offers of employments, from organizations, But here, if you don't have that fire burning inside you, and you expect opportunities just to, like a little baby bird, being fed inside your mouth, that is not going to happen, and a lot of people got disappointed by that, thinking it would be much easier. No, you have to fight for your life here, for the success of your professional career. And to fight, you need a plan.
That's right.
And to have a plan, you have to dream it. You have to visualize it.
And you need to make it actions to make that happen,
And
right?
action, of course,
So you landed first in Sydney, but you have also lived in Perth. So what was the, let's say, intention to come to Perth? Because Sydney is one of the biggest city, always the biggest city in Australia.
Okay.
It's so cosmopolitan and many beautiful things. They're coming to Perth that people consider a countryside city.
Okay.
That don't. I love it. So what was the intention or motivation to come to Australia, to Western Australia?
Okay. So I was in Sydney from 2004 till the end of 2009. That was my first time in Sydney where I had, that sponsorship opportunity, that amazing, professional growth. Of course, I met an Australian boy. Of course, I got married to an Aussie, and we were about to have a family. And my firstborn, my first son, his name is Giovanni. So Giovanni was born in early 2010. And I knew deep inside me that at the time I needed to reconnect with France, with my family. And we had the opportunity to go back to France. And when Giovanni was a young baby, we actually sold, everything we had here in Australia because we thought it was time, for me to move back home to France and for my Australian husband to experience, what it is to live in Europe, access, history and art and culture. So I just want to mention that because I know how hard it is for people who come from overseas to know where home is, all right?
That's right.
And it is a constant struggle. And it took me many, many, many years, to finally feel comfortable inside my heart to know where home is, And I knew I had to go back to home with my baby, my husband, and give it a go because I had always been torn apart, between I love living in Sydney, but I miss my friends so much. I miss my family so much. So we made the move and came back to Normandy with a young baby. And it was a fantastic experience in the way that we learned so much, about ourselves. My husband was really my ex-husband, should I say? I'm sorry now if you listen to the video.
My husband that time.
And at the time, it was so surreal to be in Europe, and experiencing that culture. But I was not. I was shocked. I was surprised by the way I reacted, because I felt different to my mob. I felt different to the people I used to be hanging around with, and I felt there was a disconnection between the Julie of then and the Julie I was when I left. And very quickly I realized that home was Australia, but I had to go back to France, after 7 years in Australia to kind of realize and make that statement, And we had a really good chat where my ex-husband and I, where we were like, this is a fantastic time of our life. We've got a young baby. We were doing a renovation project for a family member, so we were spending lots of quality time together, but we knew that there was no future for our professional careers in Europe. And the reason being because I had already started that disconnection process from my own country. With all the experiences I had lived for those 7 years in Australia, I had learned so much. And I felt my growth rate, had been at least 10 times faster, than if I had stayed in France, And I really wanted other things. And I also realized that I had a different mindset to a traditional French mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not fitting anymore, culturally. And there's many obvious differences between French people and Australian people, and in the workplace, they're so obvious, So, and I didn't want to jump into my French bodysuit, because I'm happy here in Australia. I love the way, the Australian workplace is. So we need to go back to Australia, and that's what I told my ex-husband. I said, this is a great little chapter of our life. We spent 10, 11 months, here. For me, I was on mat leave as well, so I was like, it is time, for me to go back to work. I want to have that, brain stimulation again happening. I want to be, learning and experiencing new things on a professional level. So we both, once again, reached to our networks. Mm-hmm. And from France, we both landed a job in Perth. And we had never been in Perth before. And we were like, oh, how odd is that? Obviously the mining, sector was booming in Perth. Yeah. Wages, were quite strong, and everyone was talking about that massive boom, so we moved to Perth in 2011. We both had a job. Within the week, we were both back at work, baby at daycare, house sorted, car sorted, started meeting friends. The transition was super quick, and as if nothing had happened the previous year where we were,
having a break,
renovating the house in France, with my family. And that's how I landed in Perth, really, just because we wanted to come back to Australia, and the job market was hard. And through our networks, we both had an opportunity, and we said, let's give it a go, And I still had Sydney in my heart back then, because obviously that's where my Australian life was, and my Australian friends were, I remember when we arrived in Perth, a couple of weeks after, we were on the plane to Sydney to say hi to our friends, with the baby. And but I tell you what, Perth at that time of my life was just fantastic, because I was a young mum, and I wanted a quality of life for my family that was I wanted a place where I could find safety, where I could find a community around me, where I could wake up and the weather is nice and sunny and warm. And where I had a house enough space for my family to grow, access to nature, access to the ocean. And that's what I had when I was in Perth. You know, I had work 2 minutes up the way, school 5 minutes that way, the beach, you know, a couple of minutes that way, my friends here and here and there. And that's what I think made my transition to Perth very easily, because quite soon we were able to feel at home and have the perfect environment actually to raise our young family. Yeah. So I had my second boy, Noah, in Perth in 2012. And I took a break from the work that I was doing. So I was still working in consulting, you know, back then. And I decided to really dedicate my time to my young family. And by then my husband he was creating his own startup. So we had some really, you know, pretty cool conversations, you know, at home,
Uh-huh.
helping him, you know, build his business. So I was still being challenged, you know, intellectually.
Yes.
Whilst I was, you know, obviously super happy to be at home with two young kids and looking after them and sharing as well all the culture and the language, because I really wanted them to speak French. So I thought this is very important for me to spend as much time as I can with them, so then I can teach them French. And I remember taking them to a French speaking mothers group, you
Oh,
know, where we were learning, you know, French nursery songs and catching up with some other French babies and moms in Perth. And to me at the time that felt, you know, so important, because from the day they were born, priority number one was to make sure that they are global citizens, you know, that they feel that they belong as much to Australia as they belong to France
mhm.
or any other countries that they want to, if they happen to fall in love later on in their life. You know, but it was so important for me that they had that connection with France from birth. So yeah, really happy I did that back then.
So I have known you,
Mm.
I believe, since 2000, by the end of 2016, 17, when I met you,
Yeah.
when you were working at the city of Chinola. And then we had a little conversation about the project that I want to bring to the community. And you were the one helping me to realize that as much was needed, that project in the community. And I'll be always very grateful for all the support that you gave me and the work that we did together to make the Immigrant Business Networking Association a reality. And so it was something that you certainly felt as you, as a newcomer, seeing the needs of connection, the networking
Mm.
that newcomers need. But you also have involved in many other projects or the community services, uh, including as the Australian Chamber of Commerce Industry for France, so or French.
Mhm.
So I know you are very innovative. You like ideas. You like to help people. So this is I admire you. You are a wonderful visionary of everything that you do. So after working for city councils, that you left consulting and then went to city,
Economic development.
economic development of city councils.
Mm.
How was the experience for you leaving the private sector, going to the public sector,
Yep.
and then moving to Sydney again? So let's one by one. Let's see first your
Okay.
innovative participation in community, and then
Mm.
helping and working as a community development professional or person for the public sector.
Okay. Um, okay, so we're in 2012. I'm a young mum of two kids. I'm on my second maternity break, and I know that I have done my time in consulting. You know, I know like my priorities have been reassessed, you know, because I don't have a lot of spare time between being a mom, being a friend, being a wife, being a daughter, sister, you know, like all the different hats that you can be wearing when you're a family oriented person. And I knew that if I wanted, and I wanted to go back to work, but I knew that I really needed to change something and feel that my time was used more in alignment with my values.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I wanted to do more for my community. Um, and I had still in my heart, one half that was kind of French, another quarter that was Sydney, and that new quarter was coming that was Perth. And I was like, I've got a degree in management where I've done a lot of economics as well. So I am a natural organizer. I like projects. What can I do that can align, all of these skills that I've got, my understanding of cultures, the different languages that I can speak, and that can tie, my love for Australia with my European background and all the connections, that I've got with the rest of the world. And I was thinking, and it's, when you're in that in between period where you know what you don't want, but you don't know yet what you want, and it is so frustrating, because you're not happy, but how do you, what do you change? Which direction do you go? And I started talking to people, talking to a lot of different people about their jobs. What do you do? What is your daily routine? Like, thank you for telling me this is your job title, but now I don't understand. What do you actually do when you show up at work? Give me an example of a project. And through those conversations, I remember very clearly one evening we're having dinner with some friends, and I met, a new couple of friends, that were invited by the friend we had in common. And the lady started to talk about her career. And she started mentioning that keyword of economic development. And I had never heard about economic development before. And I was like, you're an economic development officer. What does that mean? What do you do? And she was like, look, I work for the government and I implement and run programs that benefit the community. Then you can have different streams. You can have programs that deliver economic benefits to the community, some that can deliver, well-being benefits, health benefits, inclusion, diversity benefits. But she was like, I am in the stream where we deliver programs that deliver economic benefits to the community. And we do it on a small scale, so we really see the results, of what we are putting in place and developing. And I didn't even know those jobs existed in councils. I thought councils were more about rates, rubbish, libraries, swimming pools, and I was like, that's interesting because councils, like, because I never pay attention now. Of course, it's obvious to me, but I was surprised that there were all these strategies and these frameworks, and those visions in 10, 20, 30 years. And I started reading about this and understanding that the area where I lived in Perth had actually some pretty cool plans for the future, and that was when Perth was really changing from being a left alone town, that nobody really knew in Australia, the outsiders, to finally Perth catching back, with the rest of the country and starting to shine on an international level. And I was so excited when I read all these papers and all these visions and all these people, working towards making Perth, Western Australia, that global destination for tourism, for investment, for international students. And I was like, I want to be part of it. So I applied for a job opportunity with the local council of the city of Wanneroo. And because they were the one who had an opening, for someone with, that set of skills. And I said, look, I've never been an economic development person before, but I do have all the skill sets, and I think you should really give me the chance because I feel I'm smart. I feel I can understand, I can read your strategies and I can already visualize them, and I can see how I can implement, via an action plan. And I remember being so Like there was no way they could choose someone else than me. I was so dedicated to have the job, you know. And I
The
was
right person, the right place.
and I at the time I sent my application, I knew there was a function where the team would be there, you know, and all the decision makers and everyone's. I went there.
Of course.
And I
You
did,
said the power of networking.
and I got there as if I was part of the crowd, you know. I'm like, yeah, I'm one of you. You know? And I remember seeing the person who would become my new manager, and I said, yeah, I have sent you my application. You know, this is me. This is, you know, and I always use the French girl. I am, you know, I'm the French girl here, you know, and I was like, look, I just want to tell you how excited I am about this opportunity, you know, and I had that um that pitch, you know, ready, in just a few sentences, just to tell, you know, exactly the reasons why you should choose me, and I think that was he was able to meet me, see my face, the enthusiasm and the positive energy, you know, behind my cover letter and my resume, because obviously I didn't have any references, or no one knew me in the industry and could say, yeah, Julie's a good, you know, economic development specialist. You should choose her. No, because I was transferring my skills from a different industry. So on paper, I had the skills, you know, but I didn't have the previous experience to show off, you know, and give examples. So I really had to go hard on my personality, you know, and it just jumping out there and joining, you know, all the economic development specialists of first and being like, yeah, I want to be one of you. How do I do it? You know, thank you for having me tonight. And that's how it started, really, you know. And then I got a job at the city of Wanneroo. I was there for about a year, and then when my manager moved to the city of Joondalup, so then I moved to the city of Joondalup as well, not long after that, because an opportunity, you know, came at Joondalup, and I was able to apply, and I was selected for the job, and I spent about four and a half years, you know, working in economic development projects for the city of Wanneroo and then the city of Joondalup, and that was fantastic because that gave me the opportunity to meet other individuals, you know, who wanted to change and have a positive impact on the local community. And I met people like you know, we had ideas, innovative ideas, and had that selfless drive, you know, and passion to help others. And I remember when I met you, we were actually working on a project to run workshops to help women juggle with their all the responsibilities, you know, that one may experience in their life as a mother and a professional
Yeah.
person. And so you and I worked together on creating that series of workshops that were helping professional mothers of the area to understand better, you know, how they could juggle their priorities and not go through burnout. And it was, I think, for me, a key moment as well as my professional career, because I remember meeting you and knowing that you were out there to make a positive difference to as many people as you could. And I knew you were doing it for the right reason, you know, because you had experienced it.
Yeah.
And you could see all the women who were struggling with the same challenges, and you had some answers for them, you know, and that you wanted them to understand what they were going through and see that there were options, you know. And obviously, with what you're doing today, it's exactly the same pathway because you've experienced exactly the same journey as the people, you know, you are coaching. And I saw that straight away into you, you know, and that's when you came and talked about the international MBNA. I thought, I'm in, you know, because there is so much talent in Australia, and especially in Western Australia, you know, from people who were born overseas and came to Australia for so many different reasons, you know, and that talent is not always recognized. And there is so much to do in terms of educating Australians, organizations, and employers and managers as to that pool of talent that is sitting out there and that just need that extra encouragement, you know, to tap into. Like, I know, and I've always felt extremely lucky with my upbringing, you know, and again, I know that you coach a lot of people who have gone through very traumatic, you know, experiences and challenging situations to come to Australia. So that's adding extra layers of complexity to the fact that they don't speak English as their native language, you know, and they don't have the cultural codes. And it makes them more vulnerable, you know, and it makes it more difficult for Australian companies to realize their talent. And there was a gap, a massive gap there, you know, and I'm so happy that you saw that gap and you stepped in. And you've done so. I mean, I'm sure a lot, 100, if it's not thousands of people, you know, have benefited from what you did with IBNA, with Kaleidoscope, and now with your own business. And yeah, I just want to thank you for that, because someone had to do it. And you made
Julie,
it happen.
you forgot me. Oh, so I'm speechless now, to be honest. And as you were speaking, it's like a movie going through my mind and all the conversations that we had together. And when we had many conversations outside of the business, but as life, the journey that we go through as a woman, as in business, with a vision. It's amazing.
I met you when there was a vision here and here, you know, about what you're doing today. And
Yeah,
look, reflect on your own journey, all the way up from 2016 to 2023.
long story. And I remember like when you were talking, when you had the impacts, our last event together, that we had the Multicultural Business Expo, the first one, the big one in Australia. And you were there, and I remember you in the morning, early in the morning, running barefoot to get everything ready with me, and saying to me, Cema, now I can go and change clothes and send kids to school when I come back to for the day with you. So you were there with me. And so there's no price on that. It's something that it's always in my memory. And one of the biggest moments of my life that I also had a burnout of that, of that event. It's so much dedication. However, was one of the biggest moments that I had as proven that anything that you believe is possible to you to achieve, but takes time, energy, and money to invest. And I had this self-funded organization, and you guys came to help me, and I'll be always very thankful for all the experience, all the support that I got from you as a representative of a city of Joondalup, but also as you, as Julie.
And remember all the beautiful people we met along the way with that project. You know, I mean, it's just not the two of us. There's plenty of other beautiful souls that I got to meet, you know, during that time, and wonderful people who have, inspired me, you know, and taught me so much. That was a massive, massive personal and professional growth period for me that time.
Yes, to me too. And when people see what I do right now, they have no idea of the history that is behind what we see now, right? All the time, 25 years, believing that it's possible, believing that we as newcomers And I have been there. Maybe, I don't know if you felt this way, but many times in my journey coming to Australia, because I came 3 times to Australia in total
Mm.
25 years. And I had different feelings, but
Yeah.
mainly for the last time when I came, I was fighting what I call as second-class citizen syndrome that we
Mm.
all newcomers have, the point when you doubt ourselves, what we are
Mm.
able to do, and if you have done the right choice to be where we are and
Mm.
chasing that dream.
Yeah.
And then we feel that we are less than people that are here. We feel that despite we know what we can do, we feel it. And how you
Mm.
can overcome these kind of feelings and actions that we can take. And listening to your narrative, I've been talking a lot about networking, and you when you mentioned talking with someone and want to know more than the job title, it's exactly what I say to my newcomers. You are more than your job title. If you come and just say your job title, people have a
Mm.
preconception, or they even may not know what is involved in what you do. So Australia is a place of skills. Take your skills to the next level to tell people what you are able to do above and beyond your job title.
Correct. And you also have to go and network with the pure intent,
Yes, the
you
genuine,
know, a
genuine.
curious mind, like when you ask people, ask them your questions within pure intention of really wanting to find out, So not just for the sake of being polite, but you be
Wanting a
genuine.
job. Oh, wanting
Yeah,
a job, right?
be interested, and hear people's stories because you never know how people's stories can connect with your own.
That's
And
why
that,
I'm here, because your story can connect to so many people
mm,
and help people to realize through
mm,
the narrative what they have been missing, what
mm,
they can do. And you have proven here that your strategy, your thinking about I can learn more from people.
always, always. And you would be surprised because it's gonna happen when you're probably not expecting it. you know?
When
But
having
by
this
keeping that
conversation,
curious mind
yeah,
and by genuinely being interested, when you chat to people. And look, don't get me wrong, some days it's hard. Some
of
days
course
it
it
is super hard to go to a networking event. The last thing you want to do is talk to people because you feel empty. You don't have that energy, inside. Because it does take a lot of positive
energy.
energy to interact with people. And it's okay. It doesn't have to happen every day. And then if that's the case, just don't go to that event. Have a relaxing night, a bath, a glass of wine, go for a walk. But when you go, choose to go to your networking event or choose to go to that meeting and you go in there and you walk in that meeting with 100% of you committed to it. And it's okay if you only talk to one person on that night, that's fine. If it's just a fantastic chat, where you are actively listening, learning new things, and you might be surprised. And I remember the day I met you, it was a normal day, like every day. I was just
After hours.
meeting. I was meeting. Yeah, I know. Yeah, because well, look, I work crazy hours and everything, but yes, we did meet after hours. I can't remember the reason why, but it was important for me to meet you. And I made that happen, reorganized my time. But I was going there with the professional Julie being like, okay, I have to get my work done and I'm going to meet Cema and we will start planning together. So I didn't know I was about to meet someone who was going to impact my life, and because if I had to name 5 people, who have had biggest impact on my life, Sema, you're part of them. But when I walked into that meeting, I didn't know it, and because I went there with 100% of me willing to help and do my job well and be interested in you, straight away, this is, I, I felt it and I was like, whoa, all right, that's going to be interesting. And I think we chatted for I don't know how many hours, and it just
Yeah.
kept flowing. And like I could picture that conversation, in my mind, really, sentence after sentence. But anyway, what I want to say to people is that you never know when you're going to meet someone who's going to change your professional life or your even in your personal life, but be open-minded, and then when it happens, when you hear about a new career pathway or a new company that you've never heard before, it suddenly sounds interesting. Deep inside you those moments where finally you've got access to a piece of information that is going to be game changer.
That's right. So I need to get you to work with me again so you can make something together because you are wonderful. So Julie, now you are back to Sydney and continue your work with the public service, continue working in the local government. So what are you doing right now in your career?
Okay. So I'm now with the City of Sydney and I run the portfolio of the tech startups, international education and international engagement on behalf of the city. So a lot of people actually, get my job title and they don't understand what I'm doing, and that's okay because I am on the other side of the fence, I work for government in the background, doing programs for the community. So what the community sees is only the end result, of my program, but I basically create those programs, manage them, deliver them, and then report on them. So the key focus of what I'm doing at the moment is on innovation, technology, startup. So the City of Sydney has a tech action plan that was published in 2016 that has very specific actions as to what the city can do to help the innovation sector flourish in Sydney. And there's been lots of things happening now where if we've got 60% of the startups in Australia here in Sydney, there is a reason why, it's not just linked to the population demographic, it's because there is an environment that is thriving and a lot of support, for tech startup founders. So in my role, I am like a community builder. So I know pretty much everyone involved in tech and startup in Sydney. And I know what everyone is doing. And I can then try to connect projects between people, or connect idea or introduce, people to other people, to increase collaboration. So I work with tech startups hubs, scale-up hubs, universities, obviously incubators, centers of research, and innovations. So I've got in my portfolio more than 100 different stakeholders, that either part of government, non-profit, private organizations, but they're all dedicated to, to the tech and startup community here. And as a key enabler, so I kind of, as I said, share the information amongst everyone, but I also run some programs that are funded by the city of Sydney that help, developing that sense of cohesion and tech ecosystem family. One of them is called the Visiting Entrepreneur Program. So that's when the City of Sydney every year invites highly successful startup founders from overseas to come to Sydney and interact for about a week or two with the ecosystem through free events, free talks, free workshops, free mentoring sessions. And these people who've done extremely well in other markets come and share the knowledge and expertise with our ecosystem. And I found that fascinating, to see the amount of inspirations and the amount of motivation that our local startups, feel after the event, where it is challenging, definitely, to be a startup founder. It's like, being a young professional mum. or you've got to do so, you have to wear so many hats, you have to do your business development, your branding, your marketing, your HR, your recruitment, learning your accounting, your financial system, raising capital, if you want to scale overseas, find your partner overseas. Like it is just you don't have enough than 24 hours a day,
And the funds to get everything done at once.
And the funds too, yeah. So my job today, I am a connector. I am a community builder for economic programs that are relating to the tech innovation ecosystem. I do that as well for the international education sector. So I follow the same methodology, you know. And that's going to be pretty much the next 6 months of my workload is going to be dedicated more towards international students and how, you know, because obviously Sydney is the key hub, you know, of international students in Australia, but how can we do even that? How can we be more inclusive with international students? How can we make sure we welcome them better, then they thrive, you know, once in Australia, and then they get included into the work community, you know, and be seen for all their values and skills and how they can then become ambassadors, you know, when they go home and keep that connection with Sydney. So it's on a similar topic to what you're doing, you know, because international students go maybe
But
through a different pathway, you know, but they're
but
still experiencing.
sorry to cut you off. Do you remember before when we finished the MBACs, the next project was working with international students?
Yeah,
We
yeah, we're looking
talked
at
about
a
that.
program to increase employment pathways for international
That's right.
students and how we can educate the local employers about the benefits
That's right. So
of
it was one of
opening
the
their
conversations.
positions.
I remember putting the things together,
Yeah.
end up
Mm,
not doing it. So
mm,
for other reasons, not other than the need. So talking now about you are in Sydney doing this wonderful work and you still networking, doing things that you love, connecting people and getting the opportunity to be surrounded people with innovative ideas, being creative. That is something that you have in you.
mm,
How about your kids? How they transition from Perth, a city that
mm,
is small, that they know everyone in the community, and going to Sydney? Because I know your kids, they are gifted as mine. So that's why I had so many conversations about this theme. And you made everything is possible to cater the needs of your kids, to be able to let them to get the full potential that they had in life or they are having in life. So tell us more, because there are so many moms out there that
mm.
have gifted children and they see many roadblocks and they feel frustrated because sometimes they don't even know how to recognize that their kids are.
Yeah. Okay. Um, it all started with educating myself about giftedness and finding local support groups with all the mums that were going through the same experience as me. Because even though now my two kids are super happy, you know, and they've found, you know, their community. When I started that giftedness journey back in 2015, yeah, I think my first son was about 5 years old, you know, when we started to realize that there was something different with him. He was not fitting with his peers, you know. It was a young adult in the skin of a 5-year old, you know, and it brought a lot of challenges within our family and within our community as well, you know. And I knew something had to be done because my child was unhappy and he was starting to show behaviors that were not him, and his body was starting to act funny as well. You know, he had a lot of health issues as well that the doctors could not solve, and I knew everything was related to his mind. There was something there that I could not understand, and I started to notice, you know, that obviously I knew he was a bright kid. I knew it from the start, you know, but as a mom, of course you love your child. Of course you think, you know, your child is clever and has your the best gift, you know, that nature can give. But then I was like, there's just something else. And when I found literature about giftedness and how gifted kids were described, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is tick, 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 Giovanni, just to how can someone who doesn't know my son can explain to me how my son is, you know, to the letter on on the website, you know, on this leaflet. I was like, this is incredible. And I started to put some words onto our situation. You know, I had never used the word giftedness before. And that's, we joined the Gifted WA, so the Western Australian Association of kids. We joined Mensa as well. And we were very lucky to be part of a school community that had teachers trained in doing all the identification around children with needs, including special needs and gifted needs. So I started having that conversation with the teaching staff. You have to remember, my son was 5. He was just about to start school. Before 5, they go to the nanny, they go to, early daycare centers. So that was kind of his first year at school. And they were like, yeah, we need to work with you because we feel like that your child, will need some assistance and help, in filling part of his school course. So what we did, again, as a mom, hearing other stories, realizing I'm not on my own, I'm not alone. All the moms are going through the same thing. And then Cema, you were one of them, when I heard about Louis and everything you had noticed about Louis and everything that you had implemented, for Louis. Because at the end of the day, they're kids. So someone has to fight for them. Someone has to advocate for them, and I realized I need to be that person. So I need to know what I'm talking about. And then I need to go and fight for them. So my plan of action, again.
Plan action and strategy.
Was that, all right, I need to be surrounded by a team of experts who can help me better understand my child and his potential. So we worked with this beautiful, based in Perth, with this beautiful psychologist specialized in giftedness. His name is Kate Burt. She is worldwide known for the research work she's doing on giftedness with ECU, I think. And she also does, private sessions, to help families to understand and then advocate to schools. And with the help of Kate Burton, with the help of the Gifted Association of Western Australia and the school, we prepared this massive case study on my son. So obviously it had to be tested. There was no other way. You've got metrics that help outsiders to understand the potential of your child if you were to put your child in the right environment. And once we had all of that, we advocated to the Western Australian Education Ministry. I can't remember how it was called, but we had to go to them to ask whether my son would be permitted to skip the grade. And we had the approval, which we were very fortunate for, because I know other states in Australia don't allow for grade skip. Which is to me is very silly, because you can't be defined just by the day you were born. The date of birth on paper doesn't mean anything. It's important for me that the kids fit in the right class based on their abilities, and not their birth certificate. And from that moment, the transformation happened, and then we had a little boy who suddenly was with kids, about a year and a half, 2 years older than him. Finally, he was being interested in what was being taught at school. And then the school had also a special class, where they were taking gifted students out of the normal class and teaching them different level of math, or different level of English, or different level of STEMs and robotics, and he was also doing those extension work, and having a child that was challenged, all the time, and there was no ceiling, like he didn't have to do the same task over and over and over again to assimilate it, but no, as soon as he was doing a task well, it was being moved on to the next one, and that was even more and more and more challenging, and there was no limit. He could go as fast, as he wanted. It made all the difference. And then things started to get much, much easier at home as well, because I had a happy boy who was eating again, and whose health, was magically fixed, no more gut problems, No more, mysterious cramps and trips to the emergency just to check what was happening with his bowel movement, because that was all related to stress, all
Exactly.
related to not fitting, with,
Feeling that he belongs and not seeing his place.
yeah, yeah. And having people around us who understood, because I tell you what, I don't think it's easy for smart kids because you can't show off. You can't say, hey, I'm smart.
Yeah. People don't
You
want to
know,
be
I need
smarter
different
than
treatment because I'm smart. It's Kiwi, is blah blah blah. No, it's because they're humble, so they just, and that's how I've raised them as well. They just don't say it, but
them.
it is part of them, and you can't just limit someone's ability. Like um. So yeah, look, if you're a parent of gifted kids, I always trust your instinct. Always. Like, I knew I was the mom. I knew I had carried them in my womb, that I can second guess everything they feel. I don't, like any mom, you can't explain, that connection you've got with your child. But I knew I was right for him and I knew what wrong, and I knew what I had to do. But then I had to educate myself. Then I had to find the right support team. Then I had to develop an advocacy action plan. And then I had to collect proof by putting that massive case study on my child, and with that, people could not say, hey, Julie, thank you for thinking your child is gifted. No, because I was like a lawyer, ready to answer any question and show any proof, and I was determined. I knew, like, in my mind, it was the only outcome possible was that it would be accelerated and that it would enter, that gifted stream and that it would get all this extra support, and it happened, but not overnight.
Yeah.
Not overnight. It was 18 months, 20 months, in the process.
As
And I was in Western Australia. When we moved to Sydney, the New South Wales government, when we had our interview to join our school in Sydney, they asked me whether I wanted to put him back into his normal age year. And I was like, maybe you're not the right school for me.
oh, yeah. So you knew the pathway that you had to go. So and for them also adapting as moving to Perth where they had their school and everything, and you had to go, you decide to go back to Sydney.
Yeah.
Would you be keen to talk about this or was just
Yeah, I can talk about it. Yes. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I think Cema is referring to that part of our life was very, very difficult. The decision that made us move from Perth back to Sydney was a traumatic family event where we lost in during a motorbike crash. My partner passed away, and that was in February 2019. And from one day to the next, our lives got changed forever. And grief and trauma was what became our daily routine for a very long time after the traumatic death of John. And it's interesting because talking to you, Sema, I can see I've got a pattern where I've got then vision and a plan and actions. And after a few months, where I had to land back again on my feet and decide what I would do after John's death, I made the decision that I needed to leave Perth and move back to Sydney. So again, connected with the network. Made a decision. I think for a long time I was stopping, so that's not what I call a decision yet, when you're still unsure. So I had to spend that time really leveraging the pros and cons. And I remember the day where it locked in. And I was like, yes, now I'm ready. Now I'm going from planning mode to action mode.
yes.
Changing gear. And again, it didn't happen overnight, because I had all this journey to do in my head, this mental progression of But look, again, because with all the grief and the trauma, there was many more, layers that were involved, of emotions that impacted, how I processed back then. But I remember that feeling of feeling so relieved and happy when I made my decisions. Yes, I am moving back to Sydney. And then the other Julie kicked in, I was like, we've got a project, guys. Get ready, come back. She's back, easy.
Yeah.
And then what we didn't know is that COVID was just around the corner. So I had to make the very heartbreaking decision to remove my kids from their school, their friends, community that had been our community for years, and especially after John's accident, that was so lovely and supportive. We had so much support and love for the first few months, that followed John's accident, and it was heartbreaking to say goodbye to everyone and take the kids, away from school, from their friends, and from pretty much their whole life, because they didn't know anything really about birth. And when we landed in Sydney, they had a little bit of school, and then, I think I started my new job, and in week 3, that's when the COVID happened. That's when they started sending people, working from home. And yeah, when the schools announced to parents, you have to keep your kids home, and like we felt it was tough because we hadn't had enough time just to rebuild on a network or know anyone. And we had, obviously, you have to remember, we're still dealing with grief, a lot of grief at the time. So we were in our little bubble, the 3 of us for a little while. So the change was tough, very tough. And it took much longer than what we thought to call Cindy home again, because we were also grieving birth. We were grieving the world that was changing with COVID. We were grieving the fact that I couldn't jump, on the plane to go and see my mum and my sisters and get the comfort that I needed, at the time. I could not go to work and socialize and change my mind, for a day and not think about John, It was, and for the kids, it was hard not having any friends. Obviously, they didn't have a play date. They didn't get an invitation to a birthday party for so long, because even when things started to get normal again, they didn't have the friendships, that people were like, oh, you're still strangers to us, we haven't known you for years, or, they didn't get any invitations to those kids' social events, and they felt a little bit outsiders. And so I knew I had to do something for them. And again, the school we had was not a school that understood gifted kids as well as the school we had in Perth. So starting from scratch again, research, all the options that were available to us in Sydney, and I chose that school. And I was like, this is the one. I'm going to get my kids in there one way or another. And I had to be patient, because the school was full. So we had to wait for an opportunity. And when an opportunity came up, I really had to advocate crazy for my child. And once again, I think I told them, oh, you're going to regret it if you don't show them, because look what he can bring to the school. Look what he could bring to all his peers. And this is what he's done so far. This is its potential. This is how much he would contribute to the community, and he's such a beautiful boy. He's involved in this, in that. He's got abilities in this and that, and they were, I think we got a yes even before we left the interview room, where they were like, oh, yes.
Okay, take it. It's yours. Bring them in.
Come next Monday, and we make it happen. And look, and a few months later, I got a position offer for my youngest one. and now I've got the two boys in the same school. The difference, the smile on their face every morning when they wake up and they get ready for school, and the chats we've got at dinner time where they tell me about the day, what they've learned, the experiences that they got, because the school has so many programs in place, and they give them the opportunity to experience so many things that I can not bring them. But yeah, it just didn't come with one simple phone call, or it's, I feel sometimes, like as moms, we have to be like a lioness, and go out there and fight for them as we protect them, because there were lots of hurdles on the way. Lots of people who thought I was not doing, or I was doing too much, I was being
pushing too much and exaggerating and anything. Advocating too much. Yeah. So Julie, you came with the vision that what you wanted. And one thing that I wanted to say here is that people think you have a dream, you have a goal, and the dream is just beautiful flowers and beach and beautiful days. But it's life. Throughout our lives, you have ups and downs, and it's mainly how we respond to situations and how we see ourselves as a solution for the situation.
Yeah.
You have always looking for your solutions to how to get what you want. And this is amazing. It's a skill. It's a skill that we practice every day, how to find solutions instead of just complaining about and conform with things around us. So if you have to give a suggestion or an advice to someone who is not in Australia, in a position that, like Julie, I want to go to Australia, what do you tell them?
I would tell them, make a dream board. Like, turn a part of your lounge room, your bedroom, into your headquarters, like FBI style. I'm moving to Australia, and have a full wall behind you covered of things and prompts that trigger your mind that this is what I want to do and this is how my life is going to look like when in Australia. So put photos of the places you want to go and visit, put logos of companies that kind of inspire you, or news article that you've seen, or keywords or anything, But I think having a vision board itself means that you're surrounded by your dream all the time, and it's visual. So your brain keeps assimilating, keeps seeing it, keeps being reminded, because sometimes you've got great ideas and you forget them, but if you've got them on a little post-it somewhere, as a little reminder, it's how the puzzle comes together. And that also makes the dream more tangible. I would say as well that it's very important to when you come to Australia, not to arrive and change who you are to behave like an Australian, so that you think you're gonna fit. I think it's very important to spend some time ahead thinking about you, your story, your values, the things you are good at, because if you intend to come to Australia and change your narrative so you fit, you're going straight into the wall. And then it's not gonna work for you. And then you're gonna be very mentally struggling, with who you are. You're gonna experience that imposter feeling where you're not, developing into the person, that you really are, and that your actions and your words will be those of a person, who you would like to be in Australia because you want to fit, but it's not going to be matching, with your true self. So spend time to make sure you've got your story together, and so that when you talk to people, they understand what makes you unique, because we're all unique, you know. And at the end of the day, I spent many years in Australia where I wanted to hide the fact that I was French. You know, obviously when you hear me, you can hear it. But if it's just via email, my name, it's not a French name. You know, my written English, it's good. So people would have never guessed, you know, and for many, many years I was hiding that from people as much as I could, you know, or I would be apologetic for, I'm sorry, I'm not from here, you know, but I do understand it and I'm as good as you are, you know, and until I realized that I'm who I am, you know,
Oh,
it's
yeah, your
just,
uniqueness.
hey, that's just me, you know, like what makes me interesting, it's because I was born in a different part of the world. I've experienced things differently. Uh, Now, obviously, I've been here 20 years. I understand things as equally here as I do in my own country. Well, that's my strength, guys. My languages, that's my strength too. I can communicate to you in that language, you know. In my story too, I've the fact, you know, that I've raised two gifted kids, the fact that I went through that traumatic experience, you know, of losing my partner and grieving for many years. For a long time, I've wanted to hide from that and not tell people, you know. And and look, I'm not going to be lying. I'm still some days struggle as to knowing how to explain who I am, you know. But I know that I'm proud of my differences. I know I'm proud to be unique. And I know also that I've raised my kids to be proud of their cultural heritage, you know. And they are, you know, like I know at school they're super proud to invite their friends over for French pancakes, you know, or afternoon. All the kids, you know, when they see me, they're like, "Bonjour, madame," you know.
It's so
And
cute.
that's okay because you're different. People also will remember you, you know.
That's the point. Be memorable.
Yeah. And I'm true to myself, you know. I'm like, I'm proud to be who I am. I am super proud of my French heritage. I'm super proud of my values that my family, you know, gave me. And I've also made my mix with what I've experienced here and the things I love here. But the end product is very different, you know, to someone who was born here, raised here, and hasn't traveled anywhere out of Australia. And that's okay. And the other tip is that not everyone is going to like you. You know, not everyone is going to understand how you feel, and not everyone is going to be supportive about what you're trying to do. Doesn't matter how much good, you know, you want to do, and that's fine. You don't care if you meet one of this person, you know, that tell you that you're not supposed to be here, or you're not in the right place, or you don't belong here. Just move on, you know, because don't let those people stop you because you will meet them, you know. Like I have met a few of them, you know, along my journey. And I'm so happy I didn't give them the chance, you know, to stop my dream.
Right.
um, so make sure, you know, that if you encounter those people, you know, along your way, that you move on, you know, remove all the toxicity around you and really focus on those meaningful and positive relationships that can help you develop and grow in Australia because you'll meet challenges. There's no doubt about this. It's not going to be easy, you know. But the best things in life are not always the easiest thing, you know. Like
That's
I
right.
am a mom. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. That is, as you know, it's never been that, and it's not easy.
Tell me
And
about it. So being a mom also in a different country when you don't have support, family support, is an extra level of challenging life.
but a migration journey, it's very similar to a parental journey. You
Mhm.
learn and you change. You know, the person I was when I migrated here 20 years ago is not the same as today. You know, it is the same. So be patient. Have an open, not a fixed mindset, you know, but an open mindset,
That's
and
right.
learn from what happens to you. Learn from your mistakes, you know, and acknowledge your mistakes, and then yeah, take the learnings and move on,
Yeah.
and remember them. You know.
That's right. Use them.
Use them. Use them.
So the situation, you just answered the two questions, who is out and who is in Australia. So well done. And
Mm.
the other question that I'd like to ask you before we finish this chat, a wonderful chat, is what kind of food do you miss from France? Or what is your favorite French food that you miss when you like, and you have the vision and probably your senses of the smelling, the croissant. Teach us also how to pronounce croissant.
Croissant.
Croissant, the croissant, yeah.
I have a very easy answer for this one. So I was born in Normandy. So Normandy is the birthplace of more than
It's
350 different types of cheese. And I, my mum fed me cheese before she fed me anything else, really. So I feel like I'm almost a vegetarian because I've never really liked meat because I've always had that fascination for cheese, and if I could, change something here, I would make French cheese affordable in Australia.
well, a campaign for you, baby.
Yeah, so then I end up paying the same price here as I pay, obviously, you have the logistic, the freight, but this is just ridiculous. How much you pay for French cheese in Australia.
Well done, well done. So, Julie, thank you very much for your time coming here to the channel and sharing your life career journey coming to Australia and struggles and how you found solutions for things that you went through. So well done. And I'm proud of you to see you shining and having your ideas and also your voice heard.
Thank you, Cema. Well, thank you for having me. It was lovely, to have us all our chats,
You can stay here forever, right? We're talking and talking.
Yeah, and
So,
I'm very proud of all the work you do as well, and the many lives that you've helped. And as I said, because your intent is genuine, and I know that every person that gets to cross your path, they know it, and they know that you're part of their solution on their way to come to Australia.
thank you. Thank you. So for you here watching this episode, thank you very much. And I'm sure you have got inspiration from Julie's story. And if you want to know more about what she does in the tech industry or connecting people, follow her on LinkedIn. She's there and connect with her. But remember, she's a woman that wants to see how you want to achieve something and how energy you can put on towards things that you want to achieve. So is that right?
Correct.
like us here, we want to see what you can do to achieve what you want to achieve. So and remember to subscribe. Just press the little bell and subscribe to the channel to get all the premieres like sent to you. So as a reminder. So nice to see you again and talk to you next. Bye-bye.
Bye.